Welcome to this historic, momentous occasion at Southampton Town Hall for the first ever Shinnecock Heritage Day. Now, I have prepared some remarks as well as some other dignitaries who are here, but before we begin, I wanted to welcome Vice Chairperson Lance Guns.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you to the Southampton Town Board for initiating this historic event. As is customary and traditional for us, we always start off each event with our songs, and the first song will be a flag song to honor the flags of our nation, and the flags of the United States. And then from there, we will have what's called a victory song, and then after the victory song is an honor song. So we would ask you all to please stand in honor of this, the flags of our respective nations. Thank you all for that. You all can be seated. I just want to say, the drum group that you're listening to, this is the 50th anniversary, 50 years of singing together. Heard of 50th anniversary, and we have two founding members of the drum group, Mr. Wayne Duncan over here, Cherokee. And myself, I'm the other founding member, so we'll keep that. I'll turn it back over to Mike.
Hey, I welcome up to the podium Supervisor Maria Moore.
Welcome, everyone. Today we come together to honor the rich heritage of the Shinnecock people. The Shinnecock were first recognized as a sovereign nation by the state of New York in 1789 and federally recognized by the United States government on October 1st, 2010. These were pivotal milestones in the history of the Shinnecock people. To have a greater understanding of our friends and neighbors is to understand history. There is a history that spans our own lifetime and that of our parents and grandparents, and that extending back to time immemorial. History is written, rewritten, and passed on through oral traditions. The rich fullness of the Shinnecock Nation's history should be embraced, and gatherings like that of today provide an opportunity for many to gain a greater appreciation of those traditions. While historians may agree on much, sometimes they disagree. What truly matters is the history reshaping the present. We live on the edge of time, balance between the unchangeable past and the tomorrow that belongs to future generations. Today we celebrate the invaluable contributions of the Shinnecock Nation to our community. The celebration is not just a recognition of the past, but a step forward as we write our own history together as one community. As part of this celebration, I offer a special tribute to all the peacemakers, for they will guide us towards our greatest successes. Thank you.
I'm going to bring up Chairwoman Lisa Gorey to come speak in just a moment. But I wanted to start off this important late afternoon with what the Shinnecock people call a land acknowledgement. And that is to understand that the land that we are on is the historic, sacred, and ancestral ground of the Shinnecock Nation. I want to first thank Supervisor Maria Moore for helping this day happen and bring part of what I believe this historic administration to lead us to designate Shinnecock Heritage Day in the town of Southampton. I want to also thank Chairwoman Lisa Gorey, Tribal Council Member Bianca Collins, and Tila Troge, as well as Denise Beecham-Smith, who were critical members of our planning committee, as well as Dr. James Banks from Suffolk Community College. Because of them, we were really able to get this event going. So a round of applause to our planning committee. I also have just a couple of more thank yous, if you don't mind. A special thanks to Native Soul and Denise Smith for preparing the wonderful food tonight. I want to thank Peter Gargiello of our space management team, as well as our AV team for helping set up the auditorium. And last and finally, I want to thank all the members of our CRC team, in particular Deborah Keller, and Colleen Jones and Ryan Horn for really helping us to get the word out about the event. So thank you to all of them. Round of applause. Today is a long time coming. For over 10,000 years, the Shinnecock were here and have helped build up our community, and they've positively contributed to our local economy since. They've sacrificed a great deal once the settlers came in 1640. But today is about an overcoming. After 32 plus years of painstaking efforts, the tribe fought to have its history recognized and its sovereignty enshrined. On the 1st of October in 2010, the federal government under then President Barack Obama officially recognized the Shinnecock Nation as the 565th tribe in the United States, declaring the Shinnecock a sovereign tribe in the eyes of the federal government. Here we are, 14 years later. We as a town are finally honoring this day and celebrating it with you, the Shinnecock people. The Shinnecock people have over 1,400 people, more than half of whom reside on the reservation. We owe you a debt of gratitude for all the years of being a ghost in our world, for being forgotten, for being left behind. Your seat is now at this table. Today you will hear from a great panel of folks who will discuss what it is like being Shinnecock. They will teach us a bit of the history and how the nation positively contributes to our community today. That is exactly why we're here, because the Shinnecock people are a part of the fabric of Southampton. They are part of the fabric also of Suffolk County and part of the fabric of Long Island. Shinnecock members teach in our schools. They work in our restaurants. Many serve to protect us in uniform as police. This is about the Shinnecock people and about what they have contributed to make our community a better place for all. We have a lot more work to do. But while this may seem as a small step in the right direction, I'd like to take the macro view of history, that is, which I believe is a major leap forward towards progress in the grand scheme of our great shared East End history. And that's what today represents. Thank you, all of you, for being here and sharing this. I'm going to welcome up to the stage Chairwoman Lisa Gorey, and then we'll also hear from our great County Executive Ed Romaine, who has joined us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming out today on this grand day. It's an honor, it's a pleasure. Thank you, Michael Iaccioli, Councilman Iaccioli, and the town board for recognizing the Shinnecock Nation. It was a long process for us to gain our federal recognition on October 1st, 2010. We've been here for over 13,000 years. We encountered the first colonists in 1640. We have been through a lot of historical trauma. 1792, we were forced into a trustee system of men, something unknown to us. So today, I stand before you as the first female chairwoman of Shinnecock Nation. Thank you. In 1859, our lands were stolen, but we are still here. we will remain here through time, eternity. As Vice Chair Gums mentioned, the song, the drum that they did, the song they sang was a victory song because every day it's a victory for us to still remain here. So again, thank you. And this is just the start of the healing for our nation. Thank you.
We're now going to welcome up one of the greatest county executives that I think Suffolk County has had, Mr. Ed Romaine.
Thank you. This is a historic day. I want to thank the supervisor and the members of the town board for recognizing and having the first Shinnecock Heritage Day here in Southampton. History's a funny thing. Things happen long before we're born that dictate how we conduct ourselves in our lives, and the past seems to reach out and influence us in the future. We had 4 glaciers that helped form this island. The last one was the Wisconsin Glacier. And it retreated about 10,000, 12,000 years ago. A few thousand years thereafter, about 5,000, 6,000 years ago, people began, members of the human race, to settle here on this island, from Brooklyn to Montauk. And eventually, you found 13 communities or tribes that would form. One of them, which endures to this day, is the Shinnecock, which I believe translates the Algonquin language, the peoples of the Stony Shore. They developed over thousands of years culture, traditions, all of which changed in an instant in 1640, when the first settlers, European settlers, came here to Long Island, to Suffolk County, to Southampton, I believe to North Sea, where they landed. And from that point on, you had 2 different cultures. And you had the Shinnecock struggling to keep their traditions and their culture. And it's been a struggle, no question about it. But they have endured, to the credit of their tribal leadership and to those in this tribe. Today, to find 1,600 members of this tribe, 720 of which live on the reservation. This is a great day, because what this says is you're part of our community. Yes, you have your own nation. Yes, we respect it, and we should. And yes, you have every right to have an economy that provides jobs and income to your members. But there is a message today. That message is that we are one. We may come from different roots, and history have made us go in different paths, but today we are one. I am so proud of the town of Southampton for celebrating Shinnecock Heritage Day. They are part of our community, and for many years that was not acknowledged or recognized. And they have a right, as a sovereign nation, to govern and to make economic decisions and to provide jobs to their people and to work with the town. So today we celebrate something that needed to change since 1640. And it's changed today, and we come together because our history now is in our hands. And we are not the victims of past events. We instead are creators of new events, unified together, town, reservation, people. Thank you, Southampton. Tremendous leadership. Let's all work together. God bless the Shinnecock people.
Okay, so that brings us to a quick 5 to 10 minute break. You could go and get yourself food brought to us by Native Soul. Thank you, Denise. And then we're going to go into our panel. We hope that you stick around for a very great discussion. Oh wait, is there? We're going to do a prayer first.
Friends Ronald and Franklin, you say a prayer so we can bless you.
I'm baby sleep.
Sorry, that we have to acknowledge the great spirit of the Holy Spirit, and we're greatly grateful. So it has to be definitely pray the Father. I'm all right. It's my voice. At this time, this is for reverently bow our heads. Usually I make everybody stand because to me, when we do prayers in our society, we stand because we know that the prayers go faster up the higher you are. So if you feel like standing, please do it. Tabuthe, Masjid Manadu. Our great spirit of Heavenly Father, we thank you today for this wonderful opportunity to be together. We thank you for the beautiful fall day. We thank you for all the blessings that you have given us. We appreciate all, and we know that with your hands, these are possible. We ask your blessings upon this food that has been prepared for us, that we now enjoy one with one another. We ask your blessings always to share love, compassion, and honesty with each other. We ask these in your name. Aho, Winish, Winish, Winish.
I think you get your
Hey, Vibe, you tell them boys to get over here so they can get something. So funny. They're right here. I'm trying to be respectful and teaching you guys, man. It's been a long time. We've been singing 50 years. I'm one of the founders.
All right, we are about to begin the next section of the program today. Again, welcome to the first Shinnecock Heritage Day at the town of Southampton. Thank you, everybody. I just wanted to name a couple of other dignitaries who have joined us besides County Executive Romaine, who is here. We also have joining us from the town board, Councilman Tommy John Scivoli. Thank you, Tommy John. We also have the Chief of Police with us, James Kiernan. We have the Mayor of Quad, Bob Truehold. And also we have staff from Legislator Ann Welker's office. Now, there is one particular individual from the nation that I've been working with, both in my capacity as a legislative aide when I worked for the county legislature, but also now as a town council member. Somebody who I think is so dedicated and committed to advocacy for the Shinnecock people. In addition to that, she has been dedicated to environmental protection for our East End region, and she's an advocate for economic development for disenfranchised communities. So with that being said, I want to introduce Tribal Councilwoman Bianca Collins.
Winnie Bianca Collins, Metesselis, Shinnecock, Metapiawan, Patagohan, Metapiawan, Shinnecock, Metup. Good afternoon, my name is Bianca Collins. I reside on Shinnecock territory. I am of the Thunderbird clan, and my tribe is Shinnecock. All right. Yes. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon with you all. I thank everyone. I thank the council of the Southampton town for organizing this, for passing the resolution to acknowledge the Shinnecock Nation and establish the Shinnecock Heritage Day first, and many more to come. It's a step in the right direction. I want to acknowledge also my fellow council members that are here, former council members that are here, all the dignitaries that are in the audience, and just all of you who have come to educate yourself a little bit more about the Shinnecock Nation, about who our people are, about our shared history in this town of Southampton. I will be leading the panel discussion, and hopefully you take a lot away from this discussion, and I will actually allow these wonderful Shinnecock elders and council members, former council members, to introduce themselves and join them on stage to boot me.
I'm Marguerite Smith, called by my grandmother Little Stream, just learning to speak our language as we are in reclamation in regard to language. So we'll talk about that a little later, but sending places.
My name is Gloria Smith. I'm 91 years old. I belong in Great Eastern Southampton. My name is John now. I'm an artist. And I lost my husband 30 years ago. I lost two sons. One to cancer and one to a car accident. And I have 3 children that while the other who live south in the town policeman. Jermaine Smith, he ended everything. And I'm not used to speaking, but tonight I'm going to try. Today I'm going to try my best. Thank you.
This is Lori, Chairwoman of Shinnecock Nation, and also the town assessor. I was born here in Southampton, raised here in Southampton. My husband and I raised 3 beautiful daughters here in the town. My oldest, Christine, has her own business. Karina works here for the town as well, in the Conservation Department. And Casey is a detective with the Southampton Town Police Department. Thank you.
According to Louise, Lodge Department. My name is Lance Gums. My travel name is Fierce Eyes. I am born and raised on the Shinnecock Indian Territory. I know that a lot has been said about it being a reservation, but we are not a reservation in the truest sense of the word. It is the Shinnecock Territory that we are on. We are a first contact tribe, and I am the vice chairman of the Shinnecock Nation at this point. I was on the council and chairman during the time that we went for our federal recognition, which we received in 2010. And I'm also currently the vice president for the National Congress of American Indian for the Northeast region, which is from Maine to Washington, D.C. I deal with all the 26 plus tribes, both federal and state tribes in that region. And happy to be here and to celebrate this day, because it has a lot of meaning for me, particularly. My mother was one of those that worked on our federal recognition petition when we first got put on the list in 1978. And she was alive to see it when we finally received acknowledgement in 2010. So thank you all, and I look forward to a lively discussion here about the real Shinnecock.
My name is Brian Light. I'm the former chairman of the Shinnecock Indian Nation. Over the last better part of 20 years, I've had the honor to serve with an incredible amount of people on the Shinnecock Nation, work with a lot of incredible East End leaders to bridge the gap between what people think of Shinnecock and what Shinnecock actually is. So I'm very blessed and honored to be here today to help educate people, really, because education, I think, is the most important aspect of what we want to have, which is healing between our tribal community and the Southampton town. I'm also a lifelong American, so thank you.
But my name is Cordell Wright. I'm a former tribal trustee and also a former tribal council member. Again, the two-system governance prior to switching over to how we have our government today. I'm also a member of the Young Blood Singers. When I did serve my people in that leadership capacity, it was an honor to serve my people. It was nothing like it, because for me, not only want to serve our people, but also protecting our lands and our culture, and making sure that the exterior people, outside people that we have to deal with, understand who we are, understand the importance of who we are, understand our relationship to our land and our culture. And that's something at the forefront of everything I do. And so, that leadership capacity really never goes away, whether in a leadership elected position or not. We are all leaders in our own right. And it's how we carry ourselves that makes that difference. Because a lot of times people like to say, well, I'm not a role model, I'm trying to be a role model. The reality is we are always a role model, because our children are always watching to see what we do, how we act, how we interact with one another. If we're honest, if we're living up to the words that we speak. And so I like to challenge everybody that when we speak certain words, that they're different words.
To again and all my panelists for joining us today. It's an honor to be here with all of you. So just to get us started, I think we should start with a little history, especially around this day, October 1st, and federal recognition. We've heard that a lot, that phrase, but I'm sure many people in this room are not familiar with the process of federal recognition or what that means to Indigenous communities. So we'll start with Mr. Cordell Wright. could share, because I know you were very involved in this process with Shinnecock Nation, federal recognition, as well as Vice Chairman Lance. Could you explain for us what is federal recognition and what does it mean to you and what you feel it means to Shinnecock Nation?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to, to my elders here, I acknowledge that you have fought that fight long before I have. So I just want to express that gratitude before I speak. The many years that you have worked in it before I started the process. Federal recognition for me, well, federal recognition as a whole represents some government to government, private nations, and the federal government. It's an acknowledgement process by the federal government to acknowledge certain native, indigenous nations as indigenous nations. For me, we've always been that. So, for the federal government, or any government, but local, state, or federal government, to acknowledge us who we always have been, it's a little dicey for me. Because we've always been who we are. We've always been where we are. And so it's really the opposite. Because we're acknowledging the foreign government that came here. We've always been here. And so that government, that federal recognition relates to a government-to-government relationship. When there are certain agreements made between indigenous nations and certain governments, lots of people like to speak about treaties. Those are made between sovereign nations. So when the federal government enacted treaties with tribal nations, it's acknowledging who they are. It's acknowledging their sovereignty. And so when we speak about that, federal government acknowledgements, it's really the other way around, in my opinion, because we're acknowledging them on our lands. And it's a give and it's a give and take. Lots of times when we speak about that, it's a little emotional at times because many times we have to sacrifice somebody that's important for us, which is mainly the land. We've always had to sacrifice our lands for what they want. And the land is who we are. We own the land. The land is our blood. The water is our blood. The land is our life. It's our spirituality. So when we're disconnected from that, it damages us as a spiritual people. And so when we talk about that federal recognition, that's really part of it. Because through that, we've always had to do something. And that federal recognition process was a long process for our people. And many people who started this process never got to see the end of it. And it's a shame. And it shouldn't happen that way. There's over 10,000 pages of documentation proving who we are. So here we are in our own lands, having to prove to someone else that we exist. Foreign government. And yes, it is a foreign government. All of it is a foreign government. And so it's an emotional experience for one of our people. And so the federal recognition really builds on government-to-government relationship between the two nations. That's really the basis of it.
Thank you, Brian. It's a lot. Thank you. And that's when we get into complexities. with being Shinnecock, and there's so many complexities with dealing with the federal government. I think for me, from the technical aspect, the federal acknowledgement, it kind of opens the door to less complexities in the federal government. It makes it a lot clearer in the federal government when it comes to grant money, road money, just necessities that the Shinnecock people are entitled to. It's not a handout, as Vice Chairman Douglas always talks about. This isn't a handout grant money that we get, it's really a form of reparation as well. So before we were federally recognized, to be recognized by the federal government, regardless of the past injustices that befell us by the federal government, is something that helps us as tribal leaders, as tribal advocates, to get those necessary programs that other countries are recognized. It also helps us with lawsuits and several other aspects, because when the federal government recognizes you as a government, that is the biggest power that you could have when it comes to the courts of the United States. As Gordell pointed out, we already knew that we were Shinnecock Indian Nation. We've been Shinnecock Nation 10,000 years, we'll be Shinnecock Nation 10,000 years after this. But when you're a tribal leader, you have to deal with the realities of living in the United States of America. And those realities preclude you sometimes if you are not fully recognized. So as a young person, well, I was young, not too much younger anymore, but as a young person on the panel, I witnessed how hard it was for our tribal government to get basic necessities for the people, all because the federal government had decided in their infinite wisdom that not only, it wasn't that we didn't qualify or anything like that, it was so cumbersome, the process, the millions of dollars that you had to do, the red tape that you had to do. If it wasn't for our strong leadership, literally they were going to recognize us or begin looking at our paperwork in 2026. So all of the things that we've been able to accomplish, some of those things we've been able to accomplish, a large portion of the resources that we've been able to get, and just our cultural pride to say, yes, we are a government, and again, we've always known that we're a government. Wouldn't even have it came about if we did not have to sue in the court for the BIA, with this really draconian process of federally recognizing people. So I would like to point out, since this is an educational panel, that process needs to change. It is ridiculous the amount of money that tribes have to spend. I'm not going to get into the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that Shinnecock Nation had to spend. But if we didn't have that money, we already knew. I mean, right here in town hall, there were thousands and thousands of records. They knew who we were. But if we did not have the money and resources to cut that red tape, we would not have resources for our people in the way that we truly deserve. So I wanted to get more into the technical aspects of what federal acknowledgement means, and with that federal acknowledgement, we will start exercising our sovereignty in a lot more just and a more open way than we ever have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Polite. You hit a lot of the nail on the head. I'm one of those ones that grew up inside of this process. In 1978, we were actually put on the list to be in the process for federal recognition. And nobody really understood what that meant at the time. There wasn't no federal process prior to that. There was always tribes that had had treaties and were recognized under treaties across the country. So there was no real process called federal recognition. So we were looking at doing some litigation on land and found out that somehow or other, after the 1950s, we seem to have disappeared off of the list. 1934, we were there under the IRA, but then somehow or other, Shinnecock in the 50s, 60s, which we all know was the termination era, we seem to have disappeared. Now, we were never terminated by Congress. So it was kind of mystifying as to what had happened and where our paperwork had disappeared and how we were not known. But we were not known. So in 1978, we were put on this list. and I was in middle school. And my mom and several other ladies from the community, Marguerite Smith's mother, down at the end here, Chi Hill, they all started working on this and putting together this process and the paperwork. So I grew up with a table in the middle of our living room with all of this paperwork on it, talking about federal recognition. And I didn't have a clue as to what that was. All I know is a bunch of papers in the middle of our living room, day in, day out, you know, for most of my life. And as I got older and was able to understand, you know, what it meant and the limitations that we had as a state-recognized tribe, we had always been state-recognized since 1792. And the implementation, as was said earlier about how they changed our governmental structure and enacted the 3 trustee board. So it changed our structure, as the chairman would say, from a matriarchal society to this male-dominated European type of leadership, which was really foreign to us. And from there, you know, we labored in this state here, in this county, in this town, for years and years and years until this process came up. And once the process came up and we started going through it, we started to see the difficulties of going through this process. Because in 1978, 79, 80, tribes, the first couple of tribes that were recognized with a banker's box, a small banker's box of documentation. Just so you all know, this is my talking stick, so this is our traditional way of talking, and this is what this is, just so everyone knows. It's not a spear or a gap. But during that time period, you know, we started to see what was transpiring within the federal government. The federal government, after there are 7 criteria that you have to meet to be a federally acknowledged tribe. I don't like the word recognition because you can't recognize somebody that's already here. You can acknowledge it. And so I choose to use the word acknowledge. And first couple of tribes, banker's box full of documents. But what we saw happening is that even though that 7 criteria had not changed, we saw the bar being raised. And each tribe that got recognized, there was more information that they were requiring, even though the criteria had never changed. So as we moved forward, and I moved into tribal office, 2001, 2003, we went down to Washington, D.C. to understand how we were still in this process that was supposed to only take 2 years. Under the statutes, it's a 2-year process. And here from 1978 to 2003, we were still not recognized. And so when I went down with another tribal leadership, Charles Smith and Chickalisa, we sat there in the Department of Interior and I asked a question, what's going on with our petition? And they gave a bunch of excuses. Oh, well, it was this, or we didn't do this, or well, there was another tribe that came up and we passed you by. So keep in mind, in 1978, we were the 4th tribe on that list. When I went to DC in 2003, we were number 17. It was mind-boggling to me, like, how were we going the wrong direction? It was supposed to be 4, 3, 2, 1 and done, and here we were at number 17. And so asking the questions, they really had no answers. So at that point, I said, okay, well, when do you think you would get to our petition? And I'll never forget, her name is Barbara Cohen. She looked me dead in my face and said, well, we may get to your petition in 2021, 22. And I'm looking at her like, you're going to look at it then? And they're like, yeah, we'll probably look at it then. And I keep in mind, this is 2003. And it's only supposed to be a 2-year process. And then I said, well, what do you want to think you might have an answer for us? They said, well, we may have an answer for you in 2029, 2030. And I was like, I'm looking around the room, when I'm in the Department of Interior, federal building, and she's like, Councilman Guns, what are you looking for? And I said, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out who the hell you're talking to in this room. If you think we're waiting, my tribe is going to wait until some 2029 or 2030 for federal recognition, you are saying mistaken. And so we came home from that trip and we started the process over almost to move forward with it. And when we talk about 1978 with the banker's box, our final count of paperwork was about 169,000 pages. And as former Chairman Polite said, to the tune of millions of dollars for a process. And I guess, you know, when you look at it, you know, you ask the question, you know, was it worth it? Was it something that the tribe, you know, really needed? And I do believe it is. I do believe that the government-to-government relationship that we have established and the ability to be a sovereign. You know, somebody asked on one of our Facebook pages, what does sovereignty really mean? And sovereignty really means the ability to govern yourselves and to be able to enact and abide by your own laws. And from that, we have made that jump. And now the next jump is to become economically self-sufficient, because you are not a true sovereign unless you are sustaining yourself. You know, sovereignty, looking at the fact, you know, you cannot be a true sovereign if you do not have economic self-sufficiency. So that is our goal. And you know, I really thank those of our ancestors who came before us. My mom, my grandmothers, and all of our tribal elders who came before us, who actually held it down, because we are really unique in terms of Indian country itself. The Shinnecock Nation and the tribes of New York, we actually own our own land. That is a lot different from 98% of the tribes across the country. Everybody knows the Sioux and the Apache and, you know, all of the tribes that have the historic records and all of the history books. But the one thing that we have that makes us different from all of those tribes is we don't have trust lands. They are all living on what's called trust lands. And, you know, for us, it was difficult to understand how you trust the very people that stole your land with this trust responsibility to hold your land. There's something inherently wrong with that picture. And that's, you know, one of the blessings that we have as the Shinnecock Nation and the tribes of New York, is that we were never removed completely from our original lands. Even though a lot of our lands are stolen, you know, we sit in this village here of Southampton, and we gave 8 square miles of this land to the villagers at that time without the understanding, without the concept of land ownership. We didn't understand that. So when we were allowing the first colonists and settlers to live here, we thought we were sharing the land until they started putting up fences. And we're like, whoa, whoa, what's this? We had no concept at that time of land ownership. That was a foreign situation to us. We all, it's like we do now, within our territory, we all hold the land in common. There is no such thing as land ownership. So all of these things that were unique to the Europeans were foreign to us. And as we continue to move forward, we understand the game now. We have gotten educated. We have degrees, we have lawyers, we have doctors, we have Indian chiefs, and we have movements. And as we continue to move forward, we hope that we can have a better relationship. This is a great start today with the village, the town, the county, and the state. We did have the opportunity to talk to the governor about that, and I told him, I said, you know, the tribes in the state, we are not your enemy. We are and can be great partners moving forward. And I look around the country in my position with the National Congress, and I see that all over the country. So I don't want to take up everybody else's time or hog up the time, but federal recognition, federal acknowledgement has a meaningful impact on us. It's something that we will continue to utilize as we move forward as a nation. Thank you.
I was in law school in the 70s. That's just after much of the civil rights movement was taking shape, was getting lawsuits, were expressing principles that became laws. And shortly after that, kind of towards the tail end, you began to see more federal action in support of Native rights. The Red Power movement followed the Black Power movement. Not really followed, because we were here first, and our people who are here today have endured through time. Really important point, I think it was made earlier. Federal recognition does not create tribes. Federal recognition is simply that. It means that the federal government sees us and then has to respect us in a nation-to-nation way. So here I am in law school in the 70s, and I finished law school, and we're beginning to get some good cases in support of what it means to have nation status and what it means to have economic power along with that status. Shall I say the words? Land claim. I finished law school, and our elder, tribal historian, Lois Marie Hunter, this is known as Donna to some of you, says, okay, finish law school, now go get the hills. Well, we've got, 9 lawyers since me? Kelly and many other young women, by the way, have become lawyers since me. And we are getting the hills in a different way. The Supreme Court is important. Don't let anybody tell you that. Don't need to make too many political speeches, but maybe the whole world is political. Yes, the Supreme Court is important. Things changed. Things changed. There were opportunities afforded, and then there were opportunities taken. So today, when we celebrate this federal recognition, it's really an opportunity to educate, and hopefully together we can participate in making this a better future for all of us. Our perspective, as I was listening earlier, people are talking about how we have enriched your culture. Hopefully we have and still do, but you changed our culture. You changed our culture. You, your ancestors, your relatives, those who came from across other waters. Our language fell out of use. In some ways, simple convenience of economics. You gotta work for an employer, you gotta talk to your employer. The schools only taught English. We had a school on territory. I've been involved in the effort at the Southampton High School, the Southampton School District, really, to infuse Indian education, and Shinnecock education in particular, into the school system. And what I found is there's not a lot of local history taught. There was not a lot of local history taught because there is too much pain, shame, acknowledgement that we were avoiding, ignored. Well, maybe now's the time to simply put that back into the curriculum. Acknowledge there was a nice age. Acknowledge there were people here and that people look more like us than like the current dominant leaders of the country. Maybe it's time to take a break not in thought, maybe in prayer, and say, how are we going to build this future together? I didn't bring my phone up here, but I had written something earlier to some college classmates that today was one of those days, and hopefully is a landmark in truth and reconciliation, in the effort towards truth and reconciliation. We've got to speak the truth in order to reconcile, in order to talk about our respective views of the future. And so, yes, I was privileged to have come out of law school in '74, to have jumped right into this mix. And it was an interesting mix. It talked a little bit about the gender changes. I was a little girl who was tagging along with the elder men to go to Albany, to go to Washington, to do the research, to decide whether we were going to venture into this federal recognition arena. Actually, it was a land claim, but the request for land claim that I signed, I think it was in '77. And in 1977, shortly thereafter, the federal government realized that, oh my goodness, there's many tribes in the Northeast that have been ignored, that have not received recognition, and they're going to come at us. I was in Washington State this weekend, and I remember meetings, being with Lance's mother at meetings in Nashville, where the great rotunda dedicated to Andrew Jackson. He was not from the Indians. And she and I are standing together talking about how we're going to go about this future, how we're going to take on this tiger, this behemoth called the United States of America. Will we get the United States to be on our side as we take on the state of New York? Lots of complexities here. Lots of disappointment along the way. Lots of creativity, lots of patience, lots of consideration for what is our culture and how do we protect our culture. How do we make sure that the land does become first for its beauty, for the berries, for the whaling industry, for the fishing? We had a rich history. We were actually a kind of prosperous group of people because we knew how to use the natural resources, knew how to use but not abuse the natural resources of this land. And we certainly have tried to work together with others to protect, preserve, so that we can all prevail. Again, Shinnecock's not going anywhere. We are still here. I'm hearing the word, this was Shinnecock Heritage Day. And I kept thinking, that sounds like the past. We are not to be put in the past. We are here, we are staying, we are still here. My mother used to take us up to college and tell everyone very proudly, we're still on our land. Makes our history a little different from many other tribal nations that were removed from their territory. We are still on the territory we're most familiar with. Some of our people were sent to boarding schools out of this area. So you'll hear a lot about Indian history. Most of it also applies to us in its own particular way. The negative things you heard through time. But the positive things that are with us, how we respect our families, how we are intergenerationally tied together, how we protect our health, how we care for the health of the earth and know that the earth will protect us if we take care of it, if we take care of it. These are the things we know. These are the things we are willing to share. As Lance said, that word sold kind of got us twisted around for a minute. They said, we're selling the land. We thought, because it was our ethos, that we share the land. It's not ours to give away, but it's certainly not yours to take. So now we have to figure out how to put this together. It's a spiritual and a legal, a physical and a mental puzzle. We'll work it out.
Thank you all for sharing that history and knowledge with us. I also want to just acknowledge everybody else that's in the room from Shinnecock that was a part of the process of getting our federal recognition. To Bhutan, thank you so much for all of your efforts. So just switching gears a little bit, you know, equally as it is important to share historical knowledge and facts with those when the public and with our own people, I think it's equally as important to hear about people's lived experiences at Shinnecock people in town of Southampton. So the next question is, what has been your experience growing up, living in, spending your life? Ms. Gloria, it's as a Shinnecock woman in Southampton.
Well, I married one, and I was born in 33, so by 36 or 7, my mother started telling us stories about America. My mother was a school teacher. And so she started telling us stories about America, how America came to be, how our people got where we are, where we were then. She told me, my sister, my 2 sisters, and my 2 brothers. She said, you know, way back in 1640, when the Europeans first came here, your father's people met them, and your father's people didn't understand them. So your father's people would teach them all the ways that they knew. They became friends, they thought. They didn't know what a friend was, but they became close. Then things changed. So many people came from Europe. In Europe, the jails was loaded with people. They didn't know what to do with them. So she said, they put them on a ship and they sent them to your father's land. Your father's land was beautiful then. But when so many people came here, they started taking over the land. They started telling the Indians how to do this, how to do that, the white man's way. The Indians didn't understand that. So the Indians went along with them. The Indians, they wanted this, they wanted that, they took it. And so she said, when it got so bad, she said, the whole island was full of Indians. She said, until the white man came. And then the white man decided to bring smallpox, give the Indians some presents. They brought them smallpox. They got rid of a lot of them. But there's always going to be some left. Shinnecock is some of the people that will always be there, she said. So don't worry. She said, people are people of all nationalities. They're all God's people. He said, your father says it's a great spirit. He feels different. He's a farmer. He loves the land. But white people don't look at it that way, she said. They look at it, it's theirs now. And so we have to just hope and pray to your Father's great spirit that we will survive this kind of world. And so, as years went by, she told us all kinds of stories. And then I can remember being older and having presidents of the United States, and Gabriel Peter, and all kinds of different things. And then I grow older and older, and I get married, I have children. Shinnecock is changing. She would tell us stories about how my great-grandmother was born in good ground over in them days. But for some reason, unbeknown to us, and we will never know, they was moved over to Southampton. A lot of them stayed over there. They had TVs and stuff over in the 1800s. And life changed. I'm not going to stay here because I've got 90 years of memories. And so I'm not going to make it short. I got to where I had children. My children grew up. I lost my husband. I went to the tribe meetings. I listened to the trustees talking. It was always nice in Shinnecock. It's always been beautiful to me. My kids say, Mom, why don't you take a trip someplace? I said, there's no place like Shinnecock. I said, Shinnecock is a beautiful place. And when I go to Hampton Bays, I said, I could feel my ancestors' spirits. They're all around me as soon as I go to Hampton Bays. But then, a couple of years ago, they started destroying more and more. And when I go to Hampton Bays and go past the canal, so I don't want to go anymore. They say Shinnecock can't have a gas station, but Hampton Bays can have all of that mess on the canal. In a few years, the canal will be like the pond in Southampton. It'll be green. They destroy. And it hurts my heart. I'm 91. I know I don't have that much longer here, but I do have children, and I have grandchildren, and I have great-grandchildren. And that's where all of this hurts me. It really hurts me. I wish that people could understand that Shinnecock people are just like any other people. They have to survive. They don't want to be millionaires. They don't want to build all of these great big giant houses that they'll never live in, or come and build them and then sell them. They sell them before they even finish. They just come to make the money. and to destroy the place, and it is destroyed. I hate on a weekend to go to Southampton. I have to pick my days to go to Southampton because the people there are so ignorant and they're disrespectful, and it's just miserable. When I was growing up, you would go to Southampton, you would say, hello, Mrs. Jones, hello, Jack, hello, Henry. Now you go there, and if you go in to Stop and Shop, you get run over by somebody's carriage, and they don't even say excuse me. And so I think I've said enough.
So for me, growing up in Southampton and on the reservation, it was like two different worlds. Growing up on the reservation, I have such fond memories. Walking down the campus beach with my cousins, picking the raspberries, that scent of the candy store that was right on the corner at Miss Donna's house. And then coming to school off of the reservation, which we consider then the outside. Coming to school here at Southampton Elementary School, Southampton Intermediate School. It was just so different. Like I said, two different worlds. On the reservation, we didn't have much fun growing up. We put together our own bicycles. Someone had a tire, okay, go get that tire. Someone had a friend, go get that friend. I don't know if you ever recall seeing those great big cable things that the cable wheel company, those great big wheels. We used to play on those things. We had to make our own toys to play with, you know. And then going back to, you know, the federal recognition. We're now afforded the opportunity to take care of our people, so we don't have to continue that way of life anymore. And it's not just for the people on the reservation today as we exist, it's for the generations to come. That's what we want to do. That's what we're looking out for. You know, a lot of people are able to see, you know, the 5 generations, maybe even 6, but you never see that 7th generation. And that's what we plan for. That's who we live for. So that's why it's important for us to seek economic development. So for us to be challenged at every step, it's hard for us because we don't want to go back to that way of life. You know, like when I grew up, outhouses. Like I said, there's 2 different worlds. I remember during the federal recognition process, my aunt, Betty Cromwell, is no longer with us today, but I remember her. And back then when it all started, the federal recognition process, I was only 13, 14 years old, but I remember conversations about how important it was. The papers that were coming in the house that had to be filled out, us tracing our matriarchal lineage, you know, back to my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-great-grandmother. That's how important it was for us to gain the federal recognition. And the federal recognition, it's an outward expression. Like former trustee Cordell said, we know who we are in here. We know who we are as a people. And that's something we try to instill in our children, for them to remember who we are, so that we can carry on those traditions, so that we will still be here for the next 10 to 1,000 years. Thank you.
Any questions?
The question was, what has been your lived experience as a Shinnecock person living in the town of Southampton?
It's been an interesting ride, I will say that. Coming up on the res, as we call them, being born and raised there, we had the opportunity to listen to those that came before you. My grandmother was born in 1889, and I had the wonderful opportunity of having her. She lived a long, wonderful life. I had her until I was 16 years old. So I was able to hear the stories of what was. And it was almost like a dream, listening to the stories and how society changed, how the community changed, and how we had to change and adapt as people. And listening to her stories about the dirt roads and the outhouses and no electric, using candles and kerosene lanterns, and then being, in a society where I would listen to her talk about, and we saw jet planes, and then we saw man, supposedly go to the moon, although that's questionable. We saw these, she would talk about these things that she had witnessed over the course of her life, and it was absolutely fascinating. And then for us to come up on the res and listen to the contemporary generation at that time, and how their lives differed from what my grandmother talked about. And then for me to come and listen and learn and look and want to be in leadership, want to be able to make that change. But as, Chairman said, we pick grapes, we pick blueberries, we pick bayberries. We went down to the water, we could clam with our toes, get clams. Our substance, our way of life, we could hunt. And as we watched more and more of our people come home, and we watched those land bases dwindle within our community there, I began to realize that, we needed more. Our people were coming home, and we needed more land. We needed the ability to live as we have always lived. I came up with traditionalists. I came up with our songs and singing our tribal songs. You saw me sitting at the drum. I came up with our dances, dancing and being culturally directed by my mother and my grandmother, and how we lived, how we once lived. And when we talk about that road, it really was a two-road system. Because we had life on the res, but now we were being told, you know what, if we're ever going to be able to improve our lives and the lives of our people, then we need to go to school. We need to go get educated. And so that was the big thing. My mom went back to school in her 50s, and she graduated from Southampton College, Summa Cum Laude, and went on to be a teacher in East Hampton. And we were able to see both sides of the fence. There was an elderly gentleman in my community, and he had a garbage route. And I was young, looking for an income, and he said, well, come help him. And he was in his 80s at that time. And he said, come help me with my garbage route. And we had all the houses down here on Meadow Lane. and you walk into the house or to the kitchen, and the kitchen was bigger than your whole house down the res. And it was a psychological impact of seeing that made me actually want to go out and say, you know, why are we living like this over here, and we've got all this wealth and opulence over here? I mean, there's something inherently wrong with this picture. And so, in my mind, I needed to change that somehow. You know, how do we change these dynamics? Living on the res, you know, I got in the tribal office. We had been promised a basketball court almost my entire life. We were all, and most of you know, most of the Southampton team the last couple of years has been boys from the res. That's one of our sports. We are basketball players. And we didn't have a place to play basketball. And we had been promised this outdoor basketball court. And it wasn't until I got into tribal office could muster up funds that we finally got a basketball court. And then it took 3 years to build a basketball court. So those are the type of little simple things that are afforded outside of our community. You know, I watched the court go up here in the village. They put that thing up in like a couple of days. Didn't take them a couple of years. Everything that we've had to do within the community has been years. You know, they say we're a patient people, and we've had to be a patient people based on our circumstances and our surroundings. When you live amongst all of the wealth and opulence, and as you know, my elder said about the rudeness and how people treat one another, that's not how we live. And so, coming up on the res was like a sanctuary. It was like, wow, I'm protected. I don't have to deal with all of that trials and tribulations of the outside. But getting into leadership, I found out that you have to deal with the outside. Probably 80% of what we do is dealing with the outside if we want to make a change on the inside. So it has been a real challenge for me. You know, I went to college and I graduated with business economics as a degree, and then I went on to do my master's in finance, and then I went to the Tuck Business School, then I went to the Harvard Business School. So yeah, I'm highly educated, whatever that means in society. But what it means to me is to be able to sit at that drum right there and to sing our songs, you know, and to be uplifted and to uplift our people and to make sure that we continue our traditions and our cultures into that seventh generation. Because that's who we are as Shinnecock people. It's great that we need the funding, but we need that funding because we're a community, we're a government. We have 14, 16 different programs now that need to be funded. And the federal government, in that trust responsibility that they have to the 574 federally recognized tribes, does not fulfill that obligation. So that's one of the reasons why it is imperative that the nation go after different forms of economic development. And I'm a believer in the empty pie plate theory of economics. The pie plate is empty, and we fill it with little slices of economic development. So we filled it with our cigarette distribution business. We fill it in, if you put another slice in with our signage out on the highway. We're gonna put another slice in with our gas station. We have some other small projects that we're working on. And so we'll have a full plate of economic development for our community. And as was said earlier, it's not to get rich. We're not looking to get rich. We are looking to sustain ourselves now and into the future. That's my goal. Wasn't my goal when I started out, but it has become my goal after getting into the politics of our community and understanding what we need to survive into the future. Thank you.
Interesting listening Sorry. It's interesting listening to the panel talk about back in the day, because it wasn't that long ago when we had wells and outhouses on Shinnecock. I remember my Aunt Margot's house had a house in the 90s. But like, what's interesting, my generation at least, is there is this big dichotomy between the outside and Shinnecock. It's growing less. Technology and getting cable, and getting running water. I remember when Shinnecock didn't have running water. And I remember just the joy of tribal members when we got running water. Those little basic things. I think it's hugely important, especially for people of my generation, because of the technology and the advancement of messaging and narratives, that has helped us to kind of bridge this gap between Southampton residents and Shinnecock residents. The educational gap, at least, if not a little bit more prosperity. But that's not to say that we don't have a long way to go. Growing up on Shinnecock was one of the most amazing, awesome, just fairy tale kind of upbringings, out there hunting and fishing, really having a good time. And I would bring my friends from Southampton, Halsey's, McMahon's, some of those names that everybody is familiar with, their appreciation of coming up on Shinnecock was awesome. They felt, you know, wow, you guys have this, or, you know, they do come from families that have been here hundreds of years, although we've been here for 10,000 years. And that was always awesome. I just went to one of my friend's weddings over last weekend at Gallo. I'm sure you guys know that last name in Southampton, some of you maybe not, and a Halsey. And it's really interesting bringing those friends up to Shinnecock so they can experience the same joy and love and just the nature and the beauty of Shinnecock. Miss Gloria goes out to her house as a kid all the time. I wrestled with her son, Gordon Smith. And she's absolutely right. I've been all over the world. I've been to Tuscany, very beautiful, but there is nothing like a Shinnecock summer. So that is something that is inherently, makes me inherently, it gives me drive to make sure that other generations of kids grow. Like I just told you, I grew up, like Lance said, he grew up, like Miss Lisa said, this whole panel. That is our responsibility as Shinnecock, and that is why we fight so hard, so that our kids can have the same beautiful upbringing in Shinnecock with better economic prosperity, but that same loving, nurturing, beautiful Shinnecock love.
I myself did not grow up on our territory. I lived in the city. My grandmother, she went to our school on our territory when we still had a school. And then later on, she moved to the city. And but from a baby, she made sure that her children, her grandchildren had that connection to home. And so we would come out here all the time and we'd sit with my grandmothers, aunts and uncles, and we would listen to their stories. We would have our get-togethers. I would go down to Gloria's house, and I would sit with my other cousins, who were the elders, and we would go into the shed, and have a little bucket, and we'd sing our songs in that bucket. And that's what we did. Micah. So it's a tight-knit community, and those memories of those moments are always with me. And as everyone here said, there's nothing like being home. It's just that feeling that you have, is that this is home, this is where my heart is, this is where my spirit is, this is where my people are, and it's that connection. We all call each other cousins because one way or the other we are. It's just different generations, depending on how far back you go. But we're all related, we take care of each other. Is it perfect? No, like any other community. There's no such thing as a perfect community. But we take care of each other, and we know as a people, that's what we do to survive. But looking at that, there was one common thing, listening to my elders, listening to a couple of generations older than me, listening to a generation that may be younger than me. And there is one constant thing, and that constant thing is struggle. That constant thing is fighting to be who we are. In the school system, I've heard different generations say, you know, when I was speaking to my guidance counselor, they all told me, I don't think about going to college because college is not for you, you're going to make it there. My sister was, I could tell she was, because my sister did live out here for some time. And one day I was with her, walking down the road on the res, and something was bothering her. And I asked her what it was. She told me. I went to see my guidance counselor. My guidance counselor said, don't think about going to college because you're not going to make it in college. It's not for you. She started crying. And she didn't listen to her. She went to college. She graduated from college. She's a project manager for waste management right now in Arizona. That's what she does. That's her title. She's won trips, all paid for trips to Hawaii through her company because of the job that she's done. But has she listened to that guidance counselor? Who knows? And so that is just a microcosm of what many generations have gone through, have been told. And so when you think about that, from 1640 till now, every generation has been a struggle to be who we are, to survive who we are, and to live as who we are. Every single generation from now. And that shouldn't be that way. What does that do to a people's psychology? When people talk about post-traumatic stress disorder, this is hundreds of years of people going through the same thing, every generation. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. And we feel it. We feel it. We feel all of that. And moving forward, I hope our future generations don't have to go through it. But it depends on what we do. It depends on our relationship. And that's where it's at. We're at a time right here, right now, where we can make a difference in that, in this community. We can make a difference, but only if we consciously really do it. Because this is a great first step. It is. That acknowledgement is a great first step. But what does that acknowledgement mean without accountability and consequences? We feel the consequences all the time of what happened. But do you? Do you feel those consequences? Is there an accountability of what has transpired? Because we still deal with it. That's why we live on that small little piece of land that we call home. That's why we still fight to just park at the beach. So, where do we go from here? I hope that our generations in the future don't have to cry that way, don't have to feel that pain. And it's a hard thing to be able to have to witness that every single time, generation after generation after generation after generation. So I hope that our generations to come have a better experience being who they are, living in this community.
Thank you. Before we move on, I just want to say, to Brittany and to all my relatives, thank you for sharing your lived experiences with us. It really, I know you're speaking from the heart, and you're speaking from the spirit. And it's really important, I think, for even just our fellow tribal members, our fellow community members, and those that are just part of our neighboring communities to hear those experiences firsthand from us, because there's so many narratives that are spun about our people and who we are as a people, what our community is like. So I just want to say thank you. I will certainly carry all of those stories with me through my work and just the rest of my life. So thank you. I know that we are a little after time already, and I thank all of you for staying here and just genuinely wanting to hear these stories and hear from the Shinnecock people, Shinnecock leadership. And wrapping up, I just want to open it up to all of you in speaking about any misinformation, any misconceptions about who we are as a people. What's one misconception that you'd like to dispel? Or what is something that you'd like all of these wonderful people to take away with them?
I think the biggest misconception, that irritates me the most, I'm going to use the word irritated because it's adding insult to injury, is the constant disregard for people go around saying that it's not our land, that we don't have sovereignty over it, when that's easily disproved. That's the most irritating thing, because not only was the land stolen, the little bit of land that we still have left, there are people who go around constantly saying these idiotic things and try to be hobby lawyers, somewhat hobby lawyer, and says, we've done research into this, and I think that's the most irritating thing for me, is to know our land holdings are what they are, and people can still question our land holdings, because if it's not ours, whose is it?
Who wants me to take on the ugly questions? One of the ugly questions. I'll go for the ugly question, because one of the ugly questions, one of those elephants in the room, is being mixed race people. Have we lost our culture? Have we? No, we have not. Whatever we look like, we're full of rapists around the world. We have all come from the same grandmothers. We all come from the same land. We've all been infused with Creator's blessings and Creator's call to strength. Sometimes there's a real nasty negative based on what we look like. How do you know what's in people's hearts? But we went through the federal recognition process. We went through that dad question process. And I remember sitting at the BIA one day and feeling as if you know what it feels like having a fingernail torn back? It's a horrible, that's right. I want to Janet to sit, she's going, I felt as I'm a lawyer. I was 10, 20 years a lawyer at that point. I've got all my proper New England degrees, New York City degrees. But I felt as if I was being inspected at my core. What is this? How dehumanizing? How dehumanizing can people be? As I sit across the table, looking at stacks and stacks and stacks of documents that said the people who were here, I think it was de Sears, saw these people and listed them on a map in the 1500s. It's another 100 plus years before the town of Southampton, before they were settled. But they got stacks and stacks of papers in front of them saying, and yeah, that was her grandfather, and her grandmother, and their grandmother, and their grandmother, and it's all there. Don't discount us because of whatever are the bloods that have come into our veins. And I'm hearing such horrible words about people spoiling the blood of America. Well, our blood is strong because it's red. Like everybody's blood here is red. Our redness happens to have a second meaning. As a red people, we do believe in red power. And we do believe further that, for me, sovereignty means opportunity. So other governments recognize the opportunity to learn from these people, to listen to their creativity, to look at how they want to use the land and how that land might serve everyone. Because we're taught not to destroy it. We're taught not to destroy it. We may make some choices from time to time. We made the choice, our ancestors made the choice to rent land to farmers. We did not know that it was going to become polluted by the pesticide. We didn't know that we weren't going to be able to drink our water. So choices are made, but lessons can be learned. And did someone say unity? Unity, peace in the world can come. I believe that. I have to believe that. I'm in the age where you don't have to take your shoes off to get in an airplane and blow up my hand.
Okay, like former Chairman White said, what irritates me is that people think we're just looking for handouts, and we're not. We just want what's rightfully ours, what we're entitled to have. And stop telling us to just get over it. Because by not getting over it, that's why we're still here. Because we are strong, we're resilient. We're always going to be here. My daughters, my oldest one, I say, you know, she has her own business. She actually set the example for her other two sisters of what not to do. There's always one. Going through Southampton School District, you know, we're always told, you know, what we can't do, what we're not capable of doing. My daughter Karina was told she wasn't going to go to college. She went to college, she graduated with a bachelor's. Casey was always told from high school, oh no, you shouldn't take that course, you know, it's going to be too hard for you. Well, she took that course. And she was a 95 average student. So stop telling us what we can't do, because we can do it. We're an equal. We're not those people. So that's what irritates me. Thank you.
Historic trauma and what that means has always been one of the cruxes that I have. You know, we watch as people come out here and they have no clue as to who we are. We're the forgotten people. We've been the forgotten people. And that has always disturbed me. Shinnecock, you know, people see it when they come across the canal. Oh, Shinnecock Road, what does that mean? They don't know that there is a community of people that is a thriving, living entity with history that predates this country. And yet, we're like the stepchildren of the Hamptons. And that is one of the most frustrating things to me. Probably one of the reasons why when I discovered the project for the signs, that we went out there and put up those two gigantic monuments. I mean, there's already been the infiltration of ugly homes and monster mansions out here, so what was two signs going to do out there on the highway? Do you know what it was for me? It was the gateway to the Shinnecock territory. That's what it is to me. and to put our tribal seal upon both of those big signs out there to let everybody know, you know what, we're Shinnecock, and we are still here.
When I go to Southampton, no matter how many times I go or don't go, I run into somebody that will say, "Are you part Indian? Are you Indian?" If they knew that I am an Indian, I'm a Shinnecock person. And so why do they even bother to say anything to me? That irritates me. Thank you.
There's a lot of things that irritate me. But I think one of the main things that irritate me is the miseducation or lack of education of people that speak to Native people. Because of their lack of education, they think that, we just lived in our little huts, we didn't do anything, and blah, 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 and if it wasn't for Europeans coming over here, we would still be living in little huts and, doing little things. And that's furthest from the truth. Because we had doctors, we had our spiritual people, we had astronomers, we had all of those things, thousands and thousands of years of knowledge that scientists today are really just catching up to. Because we were told them this for hundreds of years, but because we don't have a little scientific proof or ways of doing things, then it doesn't matter. You have to prove it scientifically. Our knowledge is thousands and thousands of years old. And so things like that irritate me. We didn't just live in our little huts and didn't know anything. We've had extensive trade routes. We had technology. We had all of those things. We had canal systems in different parts of the country. We had our highways. Matter of fact, a lot of the systems of highways are based on our native travel routes. So to think that we didn't know anything or all of those things, that's irritating. That's irritating to me because the school system should be better. I mean, I know why they don't, because you have to keep that superiority going. But that is what irritates me. And I know we've got to cut it pretty short. And one important thing I would like to say though is that when elected officials throughout this country and when police officers throughout this country, when service people throughout this country get sworn into their offices, to their positions, they all swear to uphold the Constitution. And so when we talk about treaty rights and our land rights, our hunting rights, our fishing rights, what does that Constitution say about treaties? That Constitution says that treaties are the supreme law of the land. So when you get sworn into those positions, it's your responsibility to uphold that Constitution and those treaties. No matter what some of your constituencies may want or not want, because the treaties are the supreme law of the land. And so when you make those decisions, I want you to keep that in the back of your mind. When we fight for our land, when we stand out on those highways and get arrested, we're standing up for our treaty rights. And so when you go against us, you're breaking your oath to the Constitution. And yes, you may say, well, you know, we may not have any treaties per se with the United States government because we predate them, but we had treaties and agreements with the Crown of England. And when the United States won their independence from them, they acknowledged all those land agreements. They acknowledged all those treaties. So those things carried over to the United States government. So I just want you to remember that when you sit in your offices and you make those decisions about issues that affect us, understand that your responsibility is to uphold the supreme law of the land.
Thank you for sharing your irritations with us. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you again to all of our panelists this evening. You shared certainly a lot of perspective, a lot of knowledge. Everyone that attended today, thank you to the Southampton Town Council. Again, we appreciate you. And I believe we're going to close out this evening with another song from our drum group, Young Blood. All right, we heard one of these lovely panelists.